Welcome back to Dham channel. Today, we will dive in Chapter 4 of Cranium, a new series of FreenBecky, and trust me, this one's a wild ride. If you haven't yet, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Cranium, Chapter 4. It looked like Dr. Busaya would suffer a headache. A young woman with an anthropological degree was looking up and down at somebody's cranium found next to the plane wreckage from a disaster impact. The remains scattered everywhere. It was hard to tell it had been a plane earlier. Yet what was in front of her caught her by surprise. With a magnifier in her hand, she looked and looked, unsure of what to look at. She should be collecting remains in a bag or wrap them up in a cloth before a thorough examination to identify the body parts. Then compare them to details provided to verify each victim and make a report on each. But this one, she felt this remain shouldn't be here. She found it strange. Bua looked left and right. There was no one nearby, except her old frenemy who'd have sucked all her energy whenever they exchanged words. Come to think of it, Bua never understood why they argued or fought. Maybe it started from Finya choosing a seminar topic just like hers, like she copied her. Or maybe it was because Bua beat Finya to qualifying examination and proposal and made a pass with flying petals despite coming to the institution after Finya. So Finya didn't like her guts. Or maybe because she looked better than Finya in terms of species classification based on their expertise. Seeing from physical anthropologists' perspective, humans were divided into three main ethnic groups. There were more sub-classifications, but the three main ones recognized by the world were Mongoloids, Caucasoid, and Negroid. Or to put it frankly, Bua was just prettier according to the law of nature of the ethnicity in this area, specifically in Southeast Asia. She just looked better than her, a little. In fact, she had a reason to support this hypothesis without siding with herself. She was a tad bit shorter and smaller than Finya. Her face was round-shaped, looking younger despite the same age. Her shoulder-length hair was jet black, having been through some hair transformation. Her fair-sized, almond-shaped brown eyes. The nose was not as prominent yet proportionate to her face. Her thin lips were almost a straight line. Her figure was well-shaped. All these were aspects of real Mongoloids settled in the Southeast Asian region. But Finya had a larger frame. Wide shoulders, sloping to her hips with a slightly bigger waist than hers. Her face resembled Mongoloid, but her big brown eyes often squinted at things around her, making her provoking. Her long hair was of the same color as her eyes. Her skin was whiter than Bua, whose skin was more yellowish. Finya didn't look like the local ethnicity. Her nose was strong and her lips slightly thinner than Bua. She didn't look like Mongoloid as much as Bua did. Bua had these conclusions that according to the characteristics of the people in this area, her looks were better and fit the ethnicity classified. Maybe Finya didn't like her because of this. But it shouldn't matter now. What she should be worried about was the slightly burnt skull right in front of her. This was the thing. Bua shifted her glasses, staring at it for 10 minutes now. Thing was, this skull should have had its skin, muscles, or tissues torn off from an explosion, the crash, or fire. But its tissue was dehydrated, something that wasn't supposed to happen with recently dead victims in a plane crash. Other parts of the victims, like limbs, weren't found in the vicinity either. What are you doing, Water Lily? You're gonna lie down there? You know, we can try speaking like normal people, Bua responded, exasperated. She had a lot on her hands, and Finya wasn't any help. It drained her. Busaya decided her priority was work, and other things like accidentally hitting her former classmate with a shovel could be later. Since you're here, I need your insights, Bua said, noticing the other crossed her arms over her chest, a smile on the corner of her lips. What are the chances? Dr. Busaya needs my insights. If you're not helping, then be somewhere else, or I'll alcohol spray you. You have such a low boiling point, Lotus Pearl. So, what's up? Bua gestured to the skull in front of her, the one that gave her a headache for the past 10 minutes. I'm not sure how to phrase a question. Finya crouched down next to her before Bua noticed she squinted at her. I'll take a look. You can go to the next spot. Her former classmate gave her no answer but a blunt command. This one's mine. I found it. And you asked for my help. I'll check it out. A cold voice repeated, You're still on stealing people's topics, Finya? I thought you'd grow out of it. Bullshit. I do not steal anyone's topic. You're the one stealing. The teacher's favorite. She'd give you whatever you wish for. Finya returned, but her eyes didn't leave the skull. Take a photograph for me. I'm not the teacher's favorite. Bua placed a yellow evidence marking, measured the skull before taking a photograph as demanded, or told. Who'd let her demand me around? You think so? You sit in the building while I'm on-site exhausted. I almost have to crawl, Finya said. Evidence bag. The professor wanted someone good on site. I'm not as good as you. I'd be dead first with how I always need to sleep. Busaya handed her an evidence bag with an adhesive strip for sealing and needed details of the evidence collected. I can take care of this myself, Finya repeated again before grabbing the bag from Bua. You go? You don't look like my mom. Why so bossy? Busaya repeated before pushing up her glasses with the back of her hand. Annoyed, she got up and moved to the next spot as she was demanded or told. I did not just do as told. So what do you make of it? Dr. Busaya asked Finya, standing and looking at the puzzled skull on the table, the one they collected at about 9 a.m. on their 4th day. Their work had progressed about 20%, regardless of how they'd been working against time. Up until now, some parts and bodies of the victims started to smell and decompose. The odor made it harder for them to work with. A mask was of little help. No sign of recovering the black box either. If I don't give you an answer, you'll keep nagging me, water lily. Not like I want to speak to you, Finya. I'm just curious. Being nosy is part of the species' DNA, Busaya disputed. I don't have that nosiness. Then you're a different species. Bua shot back before she shifted closer to study the puzzled skull. So what you got? You tell me, Dr. Bua. Why would I be asking you had I known? Bua said. Then tell me what you see. A skull. Sure, it's not a kneecap? Finya gave Bua a dirty look. Well, if you look at its condition, its dehydrated tissue is not decaying. Color is brown, so dark that it's almost black. It actually reminds me of something, but I'm not sure why it's even here. Busaya studied it carefully before she went quiet in thoughts. It's like a non-decaying corpse. What do you think it is? Mummification. Bua was quick on this answer. Not by natural process. The tissue attached on the cranium was even. It won't look this preserved if done by nature. Good, one look on a part of it and you knew it's a replica. Finya commended before Bua raised her hands up to why. What are you doing? I never saw replicated mummification. Busaya heard the other exhale a long sigh with a fed-up expression. I've only seen the natural process once when I helped clean the cemetery. That made Finya frown and gave her a disbelief look. Your on-site is cleaning cemetery? Why not? I'm good with digging. Spades and shovels are my playthings. Bua said, complimenting herself. Where else will you go to get a sample of a complete set of skeletons divided into different age groups, along with the decay process, decomposition, and period of death, be it 3 days, 5 days, 2 weeks, 1 month, up to 10 and 20 years. You name it. Bua said while absent-mindedly held her hands in Y gesture. Put your hands down, Lotus Pearl. This is why Professor Nasara tried to establish an institute, so these real things could be collected for the students to learn from. Bua made a long speech as if she'd been bottled up. So how did this thing end up here? Is someone playing a prank? Bua's former classmate could only shrug. So what should we do now? I think something is off, Finya noted, her eyes locked on the puzzled mummification skull. It looks new. New? What do you mean? It means not old. The response made Bua glare at her. Hilarious, Bua snarled, then laugh. Stop fooling around. Get serious. It's new, in almost perfect condition, save for the slight burn on the left temporal bone. The lower jaw, mandible, has a crack spread out from the center of the body down to the unfused base. Maybe that's the cause of death. Finya explained as she, with her blue-gloved finger, pointed to the faint burnt mark. I think the burnt marks likely came from a crash. Teeth still intact, though some of them are missing. Finya pointed to a dark mark on the left temple. But it can't be said for sure if the age of an ancient object was unknown, Finya gave her opinion. You lost me at new. Bua still looked confused. Elaborate. Without burn marks, this cranium's condition is considered undamaged and not decayed. From naked eye's evaluation, Finya explained, the condition is pretty much perfect, not distorting according to time. I reckon the lower jaw's deformation happened around the time of their demise, or it may be the cause of death. When you think about distortion or malformation through times, think about a skull tightly wrapped with a cloth soaked in corpse-preserving fluid like resin for over 100 or 1,000 years. When bone mass or cells deteriorate, there will be a cavity for air to get in, and it begins to decay, deteriorate, or deform up to the point of breaking. But this cranium is none of that. Its condition is too perfect, like it has just been made. But we'll have to scan it with an X-ray machine to look at the air pockets inside and how old it is to confirm it. Just made, you mean? Just mummified? Bua was a bit alarmed. I'm not sure, Finya said, indifferent. Some parts are kept in good condition and undisturbed. It still look new after 100 or 1,000 years. But this one is too good. At least there should be insect bites, signs of damage, deterioration, or some fungal spots, but I can't say for sure without other things to take into consideration, like a linen cloth for wrapping, ornaments, or something along that line. The type, age of the fabric, and the weaving process are telling. This is impossible to estimate the time when it was made. We have to find out its exact age first. Then why is the condition this good despite the fall? I guess it was in a safety box, Finya speculated. Oh, I don't know much about this. Busaya was being honest. Also, I see the resin mark applied to keep its condition, making the tissue tough, hard, and dry. Finya said as she touched the top of the skull with her finger. But maybe the last process of cloth wrapping was skipped, so it has no deformation from being tightly wrapped. But we'll have to see where it came from first, legal or illegal. If not, we have to send it back. It's your call. You know about this stuff more than me. Did you see any other objects that might have something to do with this? Like a linen cloth? Decorations? Nothing. Bua shook her head. Just this. But even if there is, you think it'd survive the fire? That's why I asked if you'd seen any. That made Bua's lips turn upside down. No, I won't tell you even if I did. Keep that up and I'll bug you till you never get to sleep, Finya gave a threat. Okay, I'll definitely tell you if something's come up. Dr. Finn. Go back to work. You don't look like my mom. Why so bossy? Bua argued again. Go now. That's our Chapter 4. If you loved it, smash that like button and drop your thoughts in the comments. Chapter 5 is next, and the mystery is just getting deeper. Stay tuned. Thank you, and see you soon.